McIntyre has been doing extremely well for himself despite his circumstances. And what are the circumstances we're talking about? To put it simply, the fact is he was one of the MVPs for WWE in 2024, arguably one of the most interesting, advanced, and progressed characters on the entire roster. Usually when superstars have that type of run, they're rewarded with world title runs or big main events. But instead, Drew McIntyre is making the most of what he's given, and the reasons for why he might not be at the top of the card, once again, are circumstantial. That doesn't stop the internet from complaining now, does it? Yeah. There were even rumors that Drew McIntyre reportedly was unhappy about WrestleMania plans for him in 2025. If anyone were in that position, maybe we wouldn't blame them. We're going to look into Drew McIntyre's situation as it stands now as we record this, and why he's getting maybe the short end of the stick after an incredible 2024. This is Sportskeeda Wrestling, and do 3 things. Yes, 3, 2, 1. Hit the like button like it was a claymore, comment with your fantasy booking for Drew McIntyre, and subscribe to our channel and help us get to 200,000 subscribers. The issue of Drew McIntyre being slighted goes back a few years. You probably know the whole story if you're a diehard fan, but for those who don't know, we'll catch you up with a quick rundown. When Drew McIntyre debuted for WWE on its main roster back as a young man in 2007, he was quickly sent packing to the developmental territory of Ohio Valley Wrestling for some refinement, where he finessed his abilities for a couple of years before returning. When he came back, he was quite literally handpicked by Vince McMahon and was dubbed the Chosen One. Yeah, think of the pressure that puts on someone. Looking back, the trajectory wasn't somewhat parallel to what you see now with maybe an Austin Theory and what he's experiencing. Mr. McMahon declared that McIntyre would become a future world champion, similar to how he did with Austin Theory around WrestleMania 38. It looked like everything was set in stone for a young Drew, but over the next few years, he found himself falling out of favor with WWE's high-ranking officials and eventually turning into maybe more of a comedic enhancement talent with the 3MB three-man band group along with Heath Slater and Jinder Mahal. When he was released by WWE in 2014, he set the perfect example of how to bounce back and completely reinvent yourself in the eyes of WWE officials, and in the eyes of fans, and mostly in the eyes of yourself. What should have been the worst thing to happen to Drew McIntyre turned out to be a blessing in disguise. He was the blueprint for what followed with many other superstars like Cody Rhodes making their way back to WWE. In his 3 years away from the company, Drew McIntyre made a name for himself, storming around the wrestling world, capturing titles, having banger matches, reinventing himself as a go machine bell to bell, proving that WWE missed out on him the first time. He became a TNA World Heavyweight Champion and likely cemented his legacy and legitimacy in the eyes of WWE, and brought him into WWE NXT, which was blowing up at the time. After a brief run in NXT where he became the WWE NXT champion, he returned to the main roster as a complete bruiser and fulfilled the prophecy of McMahon made several years earlier by eventually becoming a WWE champion. But the circumstances in which Drew became the guy for WWE were once again very challenging circumstances for everyone. His time at the top as WWE champion was during the most challenging time for a lot of us, the pandemic. With no fans present, he defeated Brock Lesnar to win a world championship, reaching out with his hand to connect with the fans. It was a hard role to play, and this was always a caveat in his pursuit of a world championship after that time, and it came to a head in 2023. During this time, there was truly a conflict of character within Drew McIntyre, who was a valiant fighting hero, but when he turned to a darker side for a bigger prize. And it finally happened in November of that year in the build-up to Survivor Series War Games. From there, it was off to the races and truly into the dark for Drew McIntyre, who was entering the prime of his career and made the switch to a darker side at the right time, one that was definitely defined by him chasing titles and legitimacy that he always felt was eluding him by circumstances. but the sheer intensity of his character was really working. And in 2024, there was no doubt about it. Drew McIntyre was going to do the best work of his career, and he did it. And it seemed logical enough that it would pay off at some point with a world title run. He technically achieved that at WrestleMania 40, but only for a brief moment, because in the early stages of his feud with CM Punk, it meant that CM Punk was going to cost him that world title at WrestleMania 40, and the music of Mr. Money in the Bank, Senior Money in the Bank at the time, Damian Priest hit, and he cashed in on Drew. Drew got to win his world title in front of a crowd, but it was a completely tainted moment by both Punk and Priest. McIntyre was fueled into a deep, bitter rivalry immediately with CM Punk, and it was the rivalry of the year for WWE. Each step or misstep along the way crafted an even deeper dive into Drew McIntyre's insanity and pursuit of conquering revenge over CM Punk. Clash at the Castle was a screw job for Scotland and Drew McIntyre, and the failed Money in the Bank cash-in made the first CM Punk-Drew McIntyre match maybe one of the most highly anticipated in SummerSlam in quite some time. Over 3 matches between them, and as we mentioned, the feud of the year, Punk and McIntyre made the most of their misfortunes as not being at the top of the card, but being the show stealers. Yeah, that Hell in a Cell match, that was badass. We've had some good rivalry over the years, but often blood feuds don't really pay off on real vitriolic hatred that you got to see out of Punk and McIntyre. And when the Hell in a Cell door closed and they battered the hell out of each other, it mattered. It meant something. Did they really get their showcase to close out that big show? No. The end of the show was The Rock coming out to allude to something or whatever, and they got to open the show. But still, they were the match everyone was talking about. Oh, you're watching this far? Hit the like button already. Despite losing his feud to CM Punk in the big Hell in a Cell blow-off, Drew McIntyre came out as a bigger star out of the whole thing. His stock had undoubtedly risen, the bruises would heal, and fans would see him as a more legitimate top star contender. 2024 pushed him to the upper echelon of WWE, maybe in the top 5 category. So you would really think that he deserved a shot at a world title match at WrestleMania. Not headlining WrestleMania, mind you, maybe just competing for the world heavyweight title. But we all know what happened if you're a diehard fan in the build-up to WrestleMania 41. Things got scrambled, overcooked, and maybe cluttered, and there were other superstars who got ahead of Drew McIntyre. Unfortunately, Drew McIntyre, he just wasn't in the running for a world title match at WrestleMania 41. He did get to have a strong battle against Damian Priest, one that my nephew called his favorite match of the weekend, but maybe not many other people got to say that. WWE, thankfully, had a little bit of an untold backstory from the previous year at WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre wanted to get revenge on Damian Priest for cashing in on him, and it was easy to connect the dots, and it was worth telling the story this time. They had that. As much as we want to criticize them for putting a match together with 2 top guys who felt like they deserved more, they made the most of it. Yeah, the match at WrestleMania was underrated and the overall look of everything, and they managed to be one of the bright spots on night 2. Drew McIntyre has a habit from making the most of unfortunate situations, if you haven't learned that already from watching this video, and that's what sets him apart from every other superstar on the roster. There's truly nobody like him in these pressure situations, and it seems like he's gotten the short end of the stick more times than not. There is a mountain of salt, not a chip, on the shoulder of Drew McIntyre. And it just goes to show how ruthless the wrestling business can be, how competitive it can be. When you look at a veteran in the ranks like Karrion Kross, who was spitting fire in his promo about how angry he was for not being featured on WrestleMania, being a good soldier, it gets you cut, it gets your ideas shot down, it gets you released. He wasn't wrong. He was in Las Vegas. He should have been on the card. He's from there, blah, blah, blah. We know what the sentiment is. It wasn't just a character, it was real. And we're not saying that WWE is going to cut Drew McIntyre. They're not. That's not happening. Since he's on SmackDown, it's hard to tell when he could get another big world title opportunity. And you also have the issue of John Cena as a heel in his final year as the WWE champion, and it seems like WWE is going to run it back with him facing former foes who are now baby faces and seen as the heel. Can't do heel versus heel in a main event, just doesn't work in 2025. Cody Rhodes returning, that could shake everything up. McIntyre is getting into the US title picture after WrestleMania, and that feels like another circumstantial long shot since the man who has that title also has a lot of fan momentum on his side, the rising Jacob Fatu. Now, if Drew McIntyre is going to lure the Samoan werewolf into trap after trap into the summer of 2025, and finds a way to pry the WWE US title from his hands and rechristens it the WWE European Championship, that would be wild. Yes, I added that part just to get everyone riled up from different sides of the Atlantic. Now, it's not hard to see another problem for Drew McIntyre is maybe it's the show he's on and the title he's going after. What if he could go after someone whose family cheated him out of the World Championship redemption he sought for years? Someone who helped Roman Reigns and the Bloodline guard it with cheating numbers? Someone that Drew McIntyre really hates. Jey Uso. Drew was the hero then, but what if the Scottish psychopath can seek revenge from years of the past, get himself transferred to Raw, and traumatize the current World Heavy Yeet champion? Do you agree? Should Drew McIntyre be at the top of the card? Is he getting a fair shake from WWE? Or do you not agree with us? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling and get us to 200,000 subscribers.